There are major upgrades that are coming to the Bitcoin protocol that are not like required by any means, but it will add some new abilities that I think will be very helpful for a lot of people.
Jimmy, what's the number one secret to, I guess, to the current state of Bitcoin and maybe the next 6 to 12 months of where you see the technology, where you see the coin, where you see the assets going right now?
Yeah, so there's a major soft fork upgrade that's happening to Bitcoin, and it's called Taproot. And the full sort of extent of what it will enable isn't really apparent right now, because a lot of wallets and exchanges and so on aren't really taking advantage of it because it's not active on the network yet. But I think we'll see that play out over the next 2 or 3 years. Suffice it to say, it will give a lot more ability to have a little more privacy on chain. It will make the Lightning Network or layer 2 solutions a lot faster and better. I mean, these might sound like gobbledygook if you're not in the industry, but this is what I sort of like swim in every day. So it's that's how I would describe it. There are major upgrades that are coming to the Bitcoin protocol that are not like required by any means, but it will add some new abilities that I think will be very helpful for a lot of people.
Very good. If Bitcoin or cryptocurrency world, if it was a 9-inning, let's say baseball game, what inning do you think we're in right now, and why?
I would say maybe second inning. I think the first inning was sort of like the initial sort of enthusiasm stage. But yeah, I mean, we're still very, very early. The latest numbers I've heard, something like 6% of the US has some exposure to cryptocurrency. And by the way, I do make a distinction between cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. I tend to view Bitcoin very differently than all the other altcoins, largely due to the decentralized nature of Bitcoin, whereas all the altcoins seem to have a single point of failure, what I would call centralized. So there is a difference there. But regarding Bitcoin, I would say we're in the second inning because we are still early. Not that many people are really involved in it. It's kind of like, I would say, internet circa 1995, 1996 or something like that, where a lot of people were talking about it, but not necessarily like actually on the internet, although some people were, obviously.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So the second inning, it's interesting. Only 6% of the U.S. has some, and that's interesting to me about the altcoin versus the decentralized aspect of Bitcoin versus centralized. Would you dive into that a little bit more, or just because I think that's really important to understand?
Yeah, so decentralized means that there is no center. There's no single point of failure. There's no place that can get regulated or choked or something to that effect. And all other sort of like cash systems before Bitcoin essentially suffered from that flaw, including the US dollar and many other currencies of different places where if a single entity controls it, there are all sorts of bad things that can happen, including hyperinflation. Something that's more decentralized is something like gold, where you don't need anyone's permission. If you own some land, you can attempt to dig gold out of that ground and so on. But a lot of people don't really understand the difference between the two. So I would put it as, you don't need anyone's permission to go get gold, but you do need permission if you want to print a $100 bill. And that's otherwise you would get like arrested by the Secret Service and so on. Bitcoin, it's kind of unintuitive, but Bitcoin is actually decentralized and digital at the same time. Whereas all of these altcoins have a central controller, a choke point, somewhere that can get regulated, somebody that can do something to make it worse. Gary Gensler, I think, testified before Congress yesterday and pointed out that other than Bitcoin, he thinks most of these other coins are illegal securities. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's really important, right? To know that because you've got to get all, if you're doing something that's going to be doing with currency and it's worldwide and it's changing things, you got to ideally get as much support from all facets of government, or the people, of the banks, right? So Bitcoin seems to be the one that's sticking the most. Is that a fair summary so far?
Well, I would say I would put it a little differently. It doesn't need permission from anybody else. It's decentralized. It's kind of like if you and I wanted to trade gold, Executive Order 6102 withstanding, like we could kind of do it without anyone's permission. With Every other system, you need somebody's permission. If I need to give you a bank transfer or pay you with a credit card or whatever, there's somebody that always sits in the middle that sort of like controls that transaction. With Bitcoin, there's no third party. With a lot of these altcoins and so on, so say something like the Poly network, which had a major hack a few weeks ago for $600 million. Somebody basically was able to use a loophole in the smart contract to drain it of $600 million. And the Poly network people basically went out to all of the exchanges and all of the people that were mining and said, do not mine any transactions from this particular address. And they all complied. So in a sense, that's a centralized system. And the person that took the 600 million ended up settling for 500,000, less than 0.1% of the nominal value, in large part because there's a central entity that kind of you need permission from, or else you're not going to be able to transact with. So Bitcoin is decentralized in the same way that like a piece of gold might be, whereas all these altcoins are not that different than fiat money, the US dollar, the Japanese yen, or your credit card or whatever. If they don't like a particular transaction, they're going to reverse it or censor it or do all sorts of things with it that you're not allowed to do.
Excellent.